Welcome, Hive Minders, to another exciting Round 5 commentary with your boy Sparky. I'm joined by Victor. Say hi, Victor.
Hi, Victor.
Today we got CJ on Dimir Frogtide and Steve, one of our local RCQ winners, on Eldrazi Ramp, the deck he won the event with. Let's see how this goes. Victor, do you have a dog in this fight?
I don't know, man. I thought you think that the uh the frog tide deck, just with everything going on there between I happen to know that CJ's list doesn't have any main deck, soul land hate, but there is a lot of stack interaction stuff that maybe will help CJ kind
Yeah,
of
he's
swelter
packing.
the Eldrazi sort of wave, but I don't know. Lots of soul lands to deal with. That's a big problem for control decks and a lot of cast triggers.
Yeah, I mean, he's packing a lot of counter spells. He's got a couple removal spells, and like looking at his deck, cards like Orcish Bowmaster I don't think are great here, but I think an early Murktide Regent could ride that to victory. On Steve's side, it's your typical basic Eldrazi list, with the exception that he's not running Emrakul the Promised End. It looks very similar to the versions that would run it, with Malevolent Rumble and some amount of draw, One Ring, Talismans, that kind of stuff. But he's running Breaker of Creation instead, which is an 8-drop, 8/4, and it says when you cast it, you gain life equal to the number of colorless permanents you control, and it's got hexproof from each color and Annihilator too. The card did really well for him. Like a lot of the aggressive decks in the format are just trying to get you dead, and like if you can just gain like 6 to 8 life, it's pretty good. But with CJ being on the draw here, I'm not sure how this is going to go because he's not going to have counterspell lined up for the turn 2, but he could stop at One Ring here. Out of these two decks, which one would you prefer to be on, Victor?
Between the two, especially after board, I like the frog tide. I just like the idea of just, you're going to have Harbinger of the Seas to shut off a lot of the soul land shenanigans. You have counter spells to shut off when Steve does eventually get enough mana to get into these higher end cards. And also, I believe CJ has some number of consigned memories.
He's got
Yeah,
4
he has a
consign in
full
his board.
set.
Yeah.
Yep.
It looks
So
like
I
he's got
mean,
an easy 8 to bring in with 3 harbingers, 4 consign, and 2 and break the ice. It looks like.
yeah.
So I'm excited to see what the sideboard game's going to look like. But again, having watched Steve like trample his way through the RCQ with this deck, the ability to like get an early sowing Micah spawn, like 6 mana, just like Stone Rain your opponent, Rampant Growth yourself, and put a 3/3 on the board was very impressive. And then this card, Malevolent Rumble, is a card I've really been enjoying. I
Yeah,
haven't played
Rumble's
it that
certainly
much, but
been. It seems to be the new mid-range two drop. Just there's a lot of problematic permanents that are available, and just digging 4 deep and getting a return on the mana. It's not a bad deal.
yeah, 110%. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I got bad news for CJ because I think if Steve plays this temple, here comes a kicked Myco. It's like I can see the future. Now, CJ's got 5 cards in hand. It looks like he's got to land another frog. And Steve does the smart play of getting the Cavern of Souls and naming Eldrazi.
Yeah, no, for sure. Anytime you're against any sort of control deck, that should be your first land that you're inclined to go get. One, it's a colored source. The Michael spawns do take green to cast in the first
Mm-hmm.
place. A lot of people forget that sometimes.
Yeah.
Traditionally, Eldrazi's in the past. The
Oh,
kicker was the color.
I hope CJ loses. He's got a white border counterspell on his deck. I'm off CJ right now. I'm sorry.
Well,
I have
some
to
people
be
don't.
OCD elitist.
Some people just can't handle the demure of the whole thing, and
That's true.
unfortunately, you're there.
Yeah, 100%. Love the frogs. Don't get me wrong. Deck definitely is pretty good. So we got our Fatal Push off with our little fetchy fetch action. Our opponent has 7 mana pretty much wrapped up.
Good idea, Wizards. Nice job again. Really killing it with these insane.
I mean, like, you think about it this way. Like, the soul land of Ugin's Labyrinth costs you 2 cards. It costs you the Labyrinth and the card to put under it, to imprint, right? So it's not free. It's not an Ancient Tune. But the fact that all of these Eldrazi spells cost big mana, and the fact that you basically get to for free play Eldrazi Temple, is just kind of nutty.
Well, I think we've talked about it. The Kozilek's Command should not be an Eldrazi spell that gets the benefit of the Temple. The Temple basically has almost no downside for the card itself.
Yeah, it's unfortunate that like that's how that works because of the kindred mechanic. But I mean, them's the breaks. I also don't know why Steve just didn't go full Monty here for the extra 2. I think if he's worried about Spell Pierce, I guess that's something to consider. But
I mean, why not at that point? You're not cashing in anything that crazy. You're just trying to get rid of the frog. You're trying to just make sure that resolves. Because I mean, if he doesn't get rid of that frog and he gets pierced there because he went full boat, he could be in some trouble.
Here's the other thing. He did it on his turn when he could have got Force of Negation when CJ wasn't representing Counterspell mana. So he could have just done it in CJ's upkeep. Right?
Yeah, that's true.
And here we have a frog dilemma again. Not. Oh, okay. So we're just gonna 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. He has a land. Oh, yeah.
There you go. Be interesting to see what he uses. Oh, okay. Nothing with the mana, unfortunately, but
Well,
gotta make
the
him
worst
think about it.
the worst part about this situation is Worldbreaker blocks the hell out of Frog all day, all night.
Yeah, will be certainly difficult to get through that wall of world breakers.
Yeah. CJ draws a sink and his stupa. I don't know how hilarious it is, actually, but we will see.
That might be what we call in the business irony. So
I mean that's fine. The sink and the stupa is another land for the turn, right? Thing's got hella reach. And he packs it on in, folks. That's true. So looking at these sideboards, like I said before, CJ's got a clean 8 to bring in, 1 Break the Ice, 4 Consign to Memory, 3 Harbinger of the Seas, maybe Surgical Extraction. I think Surgical Extraction gets overboarded in like the current meta right now. A lot of people are like, "Oh, I can hit certain cards," but I don't think that's really what you want to be doing. Anything else in his sideboard that you think you'd bring in? Oh, they're there on the screen.
You don't want the spell bomb from CJ's side. I don't think that needs to come in. The Stern Scoldings obviously do nothing. Toxic Deluge, you never want to do that. I mean, that's almost probably by the time it's relevant, it's half your life gone for a creature that comes back anyway. So
True.
I agree. The 8 sounds good. You could try to fit the surgicals. If CJ had a better, more reliable way to hit this one of the soul lands and surgical it, I would say it might be worth it because I mean, listen, you get rid of the Eldrazi temples and the deck's a lot slower.
100%. I think that's a strong agree there. Looking at his main deck, I could see him taking out the subtleties. I don't think you really want to subtlety Eldrazi creatures. It's different when it's like the elementals, like the pitch elementals, where they have to spend a card. But like when they're just getting the effects off of casting some of these creatures, I don't think you want them to play them again. So I could see him cutting. Sure. I could see him cutting the 2 subtleties and the Toxic Deluge. And then possibly like a go for the throat, a cling to the dust. So that's what, two, three, four, five. And then maybe some number of fatal push. Like they don't play a lot of creatures. I think CJ kind of wants to be the aggressor here. I like leaving
Yeah,
in Bowmasters against rings.
there is also the argument that he might have taken out some number of spell snares because you don't really want to counter the ramp spells.
So I like Spell Snare in the matchup because it counters the talismans and it counters Rumble. And I think those are some important cards that like Steve is probably going to keep in his opening hand that you can just snag for 1 mana. Like trading up on mana, I think is pretty good. Maybe you can cut down to 2 Spell Snare where it's not great, but I think having some number of Spell Snare against the deck is important. From Steve's side, we have the Chalice of the Void, which I think is a decent card to put in. He might bring in Stone Rain. I think the Trinispheres and the Veil and the Bog are probably cards he wants to see. In terms of cuts, I mean, he can cut the Kozilek's returns. I think those are fair. I think also he can possibly cut the Ulamog. I don't know how like far in the deep end he needs to go when like World Breaker is like he can get it back by sacrificing some of his extra lands and then just recasting World Breakers again.
Yeah, I think I'm certainly fine with that. Yeah, the returns in not so
Yeah.
much. Yeah, I think
Yeah. So what? Two Trinispheres, 2 cards, Veil of Summers 3, Bogs 4, and then maybe the Chalice is 5, and then you cut 2 returns, and you cut an Ulamog that's 3 cards, and then like the Ugin maybe because Ugin gets hit by Force. That's
it does get hit
4
by
and all this
force,
dust.
but it does present a possible like kind of late game. Oh, hey, I'm gonna keep this board clear and then plus up. I would think
I
about maybe getting rid of the all is dust. I don't know how many
I think all this dust is fine
permanents
because
is
it
really gonna
doesn't get hit
hit.
by Rumble. Yeah. Ooh. Okay. So CJ's telegraphing he does not want lands here. He's got enough in his hand. He wants some action. It looks like he's got a frog, and it looks like he's got a harbinger. So that could be big. If there's no basic, I see a basic forest, but beyond that, if he's able to play the harbinger and then keep it alive, I think CJ's going to get this one quick.
Yeah, I do think that while it's unfortunate that CJ had to go two non-basics in a row, I think that the black mana at this point is not needed. He already has
No,
a frog in
you're ahead
play.
on board. You have a frog. They have nothing. This is going to tell you a lot about Steve's hand here. What he takes. If he takes the ring, you know he's got lands in his hand. If he takes the Ugin's Nexus, okay, he's not going to be able to cast it. That's going to be great.
Yeah, I mean,
I
in
mean, he'll be
fairness,
able to cast it and find a land for himself. I hope he's got wastes in his deck still, which it does look like he does have. But some of his things cost multiple pips. Ooh, throws away
oof.
the mana. Fine swamp.
Yeah, I don't think he sees this one coming.
Ooh, we're gonna get him.
To
We're
be
gonna
fair,
get
the
him.
idea of seeing double non-basic into
Well,
basic swamp,
the best part about playing this deck is specifically that those are islands.
yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, Flood Moon really does make it very interesting.
Wombo combo, baby.
Can't Kozilek's return now either.
Now, and he just drew the wastes. Oh, this is gonna hurt. It looks like he brought in surgical extraction against the deck. I don't know why he would do that when a lot of his removal exiles. This is the bad thing that I don't like about like when people board in surgical, like so many people are just bringing in surgical extractions, right? It's different if it's like a graveyard centric deck. When your opponent's beating you down with Psychic Frog,
Yeah, I have to agree there. I don't. I am surprised that Steve brought it in. I don't think he benefits nearly as much from the possible effect as CJ does. So, I
Yeah,
mean, we'll see if he gets to use and pop it off. But it seems like it's a lot for Steve to have to come back from so early.
yeah, and I mean, like,
I'll say it again. So and Michael Spawn should not have dual cast triggers. One of them should have been a cast, the other one should have been an enter the battlefield.
uh, I think it's pushed. I think it's pushed enough. 6 mana is a lot. Not in that deck, obviously, but it's a lot. Oh, this is amazing.
Oh, yeah.
I almost didn't see
Yeah.
it. Oh, I'm a little bit of a stickler. He said go. He doesn't get to find the land.
Well,
Call me mean in the comments. Do whatever you want.
no, but I think the problem is that from a judge standpoint, like he just can't choose. Like he still has to search, right? Like this trigger's still on the stack.
Yes, but he can fail to find, right? Isn't that one of the things? As you
Well, yeah,
cast his card,
but you can't
draw the failing
you
card.
couldn't rule that he couldn't search his library. Like you can't
Sure.
stop him from searching his library there. That wouldn't be part of how the sort of, I guess,
Yeah.
judging philosophy would go in the current, RCQ and just the competitive REL format, I should say. So,
Sure.
I mean, either way, like it doesn't really matter in the long run, like because the trigger resolving isn't it's not good for him because CJ's
I
doing it in
think
response
I
anyway.
think
So either way,
CJ
he's
needs
losing it.
to. Yeah, I agree. I mean, like I'm just being a stickler for stickler's sake. Uh, but I think CJ needs to realize he needs to turn the corner here and make the frog big and put Steve dead in one more turn. Like he's coming in for 5, 6 with the frog. He's got a couple of cards in hand. He needs to stop playing lands from his hand and start discarding cards and leaving him with like some potential. Like counter the One Ring. Your opponent can't currently play any of his big threats. Like he would need colorless, and he doesn't have extra colorless right now.
Yeah, he just has the one waste, and that's the only thing. So
Yeah, well,
yeah,
I
he
mean,
just
the talismans make colorless, but he's got to tap mana for it. I think that's a counter that should be on the frog. Yeah, I mean, I think CJ's being way too cautious here.
yeah. I mean, having the second backup subtlety there will probably end up being pretty good.
Consign to memory for 3. That's pretty good. Yeah.
Enough, the math was there.
Yep. That's some boy math we got going on.
Math is for blockers, and unfortunately, Steve had the block to his death.
Yeah. CJ's got the Harbinger rolled up again. We'll see if Steve can go quick enough. I mean, he doesn't have the soul land on turn 1, so we'll see if he can get there.
Sparky, I just don't want to confuse our viewers at home. I think you meant to say that CJ has the Harbinger, correct?
Yeah, I thought I said that. I'm sorry.
No,
It's
you're
a
good. Just
we're,
listen.
we're
You know what?
recording
Just
after a
trying to
long
help
day.
those people.
Yeah,
I had
CJ's got the Harbinger. I don't think what I meant to say is Steve doesn't have the soul land to like. Oh, he just drew it because he put it on top, but he didn't have the soul land and the talisman for the quick start. So this is kind of him taking a little bit of a turn off, and he doesn't do anything with it. Let's see if
To be fair, if he's got Kozilek's return or command, sorry, he can hold on, just maybe cash in for a little bit of
1, 2,
value just
3,
to help rate.
4. Yeah, but he needs a second soul land in order to like.
Hey, look at that.
Yeah, I think that plays fine. I think you kind of get blown out here by counterspell. I say blown out. It's not a huge thing, but I don't think this should resolve here. Not that I think it's a big deal,
Uh,
but it's obviously helping Steve's development. He wants the extra colorless.
it's a tough call. I mean, if CJ has the consign in hand, saving the 2 mana for whatever is going to come up on this following turn, in my mind, is a way better usage of your mana. I
Yes,
mean,
but
a Kozilek's.
your opponent also has to have the other soul land and something else. Like a sowing Micro Spawn here would be terrible, obviously, if you countered it. But he also wouldn't have the spawn to do the 6 mana thing.
Yeah, but if he has, sure, he wouldn't be able to do the 5 mana thing. But I mean, Spawn doesn't always necessarily have to cash in, but just the yeah. See, so he's doing it for.
I'm very curious. Is he sacking the spawn to cast this?
No, it does not look like he said that there was going to be.
But it still costs 4 mana, and he only has 3 mana. He tapped a soul land and a.
No, he's just shortcutting. He fetched with the Wooded Foothills that he played for turn.
Oh, okay. Got it. Yeah, I think stopping the Micro Spawn here is actually pretty good.
Yeah, I'm not against it. It's a pivotal kind of like tempo turn here. Um,
What? Did we not have counterspell for the Kozilek's command?
again, I understand what you're
Yeah.
saying, but I don't necessarily think that there's a need to counter a draw one, make one,
I mean, it's a ramp spell.
dude. Yeah,
I
which
mean,
is
but why?
fine.
But like, why is okay? Well, why is CJ countering a 3/3? Is the question. Like, he
Well,
just doesn't
if you think
want
about it, right? So it's
the
gonna
the
apply
3/3 is bigger
pressure.
than the 2/2.
Yeah, that's a definite problem for sure.
Okay.
Um,
Yeah, but he's got a Murktide that could be a 4/4. Like this is the line that's losing me, right? Because he has an instant and sorcery in his yard. His 3/3 becomes a 4/4 if he delves Murktide next turn. So he can just block the Micro Spawn, or he can attack through it. I
maybe he's
mean,
trying to
he could be
preserve
worried
life
about the
total.
race. Yeah.
Three's nothing. I mean, that's a fifth year Earth. I should say three isn't nothing because it's a fifth of your health at that point. So you know,
2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Yeah.
I assume he's gonna get waste here. I could be wrong, but that wouldn't make much sense. That should come into play tapped.
Mm,
Oh no, he
no,
gets
it's an island. Yeah,
it's an
it's an
island.
island.
Doesn't matter. Yep.
Yep. I'm putting anything that's not like a removal spell or like another good spell on the bottom. Unforge. Five
Murktide
five
time maybe.
Murktide. Yeah.
All right, beefy boy in play.
Mm-hmm.
Still very surprised. Sorry, a little something in the throat there, but still surprised that Steve decided not to go get
The
um
waste.
the waste.
Well, he had a. It looked like he had a rumble in his hand. I think this is something we want to counter. I don't think we want him to try and. I mean, like this is also one of those times where like this is why I like spell snare in the matchup. He's tapped out anyway. There's nothing much you can do. But you're hoping Steve turns over the ring like he just did, takes it, and then goes to cast it.
Yeah, it's tough. I mean, they're both good 4-drops here.
Yeah.
I think if I'm gonna guess, obviously I haven't seen this clip before, I would think he's gonna choose the ring just because he can't cash in the Michael Spawn's value until next turn. So maybe he's just trying to do it now.
Saw that coming. It's a good line. I mean, like, you kind of have to just jam your spells. There's not much you can do.
That would be fun if that card also had reach, because then I really would tell Wizards that the push is obviously a
double Harbinger. Gotta love it. Force the double blocks.
Yeah, and the worst part is he needs to save the spawn to generate some colorless mana, and it's...
Yeah, and I mean, like, this clock is coming, and I believe there's a subtlety in his hand. So...
Yeah, there is a subtlety.
It goes to the top of his deck, CJ. That's what it does.
Yeah, I think that, you know...
Yep, and he's dead. 5 + 3 is 8.
There we go.
Oh, and that's how we wrap it up, man. Sometimes they're quick, especially when you have Flood Moons and Blood Moons. But them's the breaks. We want to thank you for joining us yet again. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe, and check out our store. Also, we do have an event coming up, the OCHO. Check it out. Sparky saying goodbye. Say goodbye, Victor.
Goodbye, Victor.